Lily Bennett stood in the rain outside the towering glass headquarters of Meridian Technologies, her thin cardboard sign soggy at the edges. Flowers, $2, was written in faded marker that had begun to bleed in the downpour. Her collection of slightly wilted daisies and carnations, wrapped in newspaper, sat in a plastic bucket at her feet. She'd been selling flowers at this same corner for 3 months, her tattered green jacket offering little protection against the Seattle winter. What no one knew was that every day she stood less than 50 feet from the man who had once rocked her to sleep. Her father, who believed she had died 15 years ago in the accident that claimed her mother's life. Tomorrow, their worlds would collide in a moment that would bring the CEO of Meridian Technologies to his knees. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing. And to our channel. The morning air was sharp with the scent of rain and coffee when Lily arranged her flower bucket on the corner of Pike and Madison. Seattle's financial district buzzed with suited professionals rushing to their glass towers, umbrellas, bobbing like black mushrooms above the crowd. Lily's fingers, red and chapped from the cold, carefully arranged the daisies she'd managed to salvage from a local florist's dumpster. They weren't perfect. Some had browning edges or slightly drooping stems, but she'd learned to find beauty in damaged things. "Hey, flower girl," called a security guard from the Meridian Technologies building. He was middle-aged, with kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. "Got anything cheerful today?" "My wife's birthday is tomorrow," Lily returned. His smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Morning, Frank, I saved these yellow ones for you." She handed him 3 daisies with only slightly bruised petals. "On the house." "No way," Frank protested, pressing a $5 bill into her palm. "You need it more than I do." He hesitated, then added, "Weather's getting worse. The shelter on 3rd has empty beds this week. You should think about it." Lily nodded but didn't respond. Shelters meant questions, paperwork, and the risk of being recognized. At 23, she'd spent most of her life hiding, first in foster homes that never quite felt like family, then on the streets when she aged out of the system. The official story was that Lily Bennett had died alongside her mother in a car accident when she was 8. Only she knew the truth, that she'd survived and been separated from her father through a tangle of legal misunderstandings and a greedy aunt who had seen an opportunity in the tragedy. "Thanks, Frank," she said finally, pocketing the money. "I'll think about it." As the morning crowd thinned, Lily's gaze drifted up to the top floor of Meridian Technologies. Behind those tinted windows was her father, Robert Bennett, now known as the brilliant but reclusive CEO who had transformed a struggling tech startup into a Fortune 500 company. She'd seen his face on business magazines, aged 15 years from the father in her memories, but with the same serious eyes. She'd followed his career from library computers and discarded newspapers, collecting every scrap of information like treasures. Lily had arrived in Seattle 3 months ago with a backpack containing everything she owned and a plan to finally reveal herself. But courage had abandoned her each time she approached the building. What if he didn't believe her? What if he didn't want her? Worse still, what if he'd moved on and built a new family in the years he thought she was dead? The rain intensified, and Lily huddled deeper into her jacket. Across the street, a sleek black car pulled up to the Meridian building. Even through the downpour, she recognized the tall figure that emerged, Robert Bennett, his silver-streaked hair and confident stride unmistakable. He paused at the entrance, turning to look in her direction as if sensing something. For a moment their eyes met across the busy street, and Lily felt the air leave her lungs. Then someone called his name, and the moment broke. He disappeared into the building, unaware that he had just looked into the eyes of his long-lost daughter. "You'll catch pneumonia standing out here," came a voice, startling Lily from her thoughts. A woman in a tailored pantsuit stood before her, holding out a steaming cup of coffee. "Thought you might need this." "Thank you," Lily said, accepting the cup gratefully. The warmth seeped into her frozen fingers. "I'm Claire," the woman said. "Executive assistant at Meridian. I see you here every day." Lily nodded, suddenly wary. "I'm Lily." Claire smiled, her eyes kind but analytical. "You don't seem like the typical street vendor, Lily. Your speech, the way you carry yourself, there's a story there." "Everyone has a story," Lily replied. "Carefully?" "Indeed." Claire glanced at her watch. "Listen, we're hosting a charity gala tomorrow evening, high-profile event for Seattle's tech elite. We need additional staff to help with coat check, serving drinks, that sort of thing. Pays well for one night's work." Interested, Lily's heart raced. A charity gala inside Meridian Technologies would mean access to the building, to her father. "Yes," she said before she could reconsider. "I'd like that." Claire handed her a business card. "Come to this address tomorrow at 4 p.m. Wear black if you can. Nothing fancy, just clean." She paused, studying Lily's face. "You know, you remind me of someone. Can't quite place it." Lily lowered her eyes, focusing on arranging her flowers. "I have that kind of face, I guess." After Claire left, Lily sold 3 more bouquets before the skies opened up completely. Thunder cracked overhead as she gathered her unsold flowers and the meager earnings of the day. $27 and some change. Enough for a meal, and maybe a night at the cheap motel on Aurora Avenue, if they had vacancies. As she turned to leave, she noticed something on the ground, a wallet, sleek leather, obviously expensive. Kneeling, she picked it up and flipped it open. The driver's license inside made her breath catch. Robert Bennett, CEO of Meridian Technologies, with an address in the wealthy Magnolia neighborhood. He must have dropped it this morning when he exited his car. Lily's fingers trembled as she traced the outline of his face on the license photo. It would be so easy to go to his home, to finally confront him with the truth, but something held her back, the same fear that had paralyzed her for months. Instead, she tucked the wallet into her jacket pocket. Tomorrow, at the gala, she would return it. It was the perfect excuse to approach him. That night, in a small room at Emerald Motel, Lily laid out her few possessions on the threadbare bedspread. A faded photograph of her father, holding her as a child, their smiles bright and untroubled. A newspaper clipping announcing her and her mother's deaths. A small music box, her last birthday gift from her father before the accident, that still played Beethoven's Für Elise when wound. And now his wallet, containing credit cards, business cards, and a small photo tucked behind his driver's license, a picture of her mother holding a baby Lily. He still carried their photo. After 15 years, he hadn't forgotten. Lily curled up on the bed, clutching the photo to her chest. Tomorrow, she would finally gather the courage to speak to him, to show him she was alive, that the accident had taken her mother but not his daughter, that the aunt who had identified both bodies had lied to gain control of the trust fund set up for Lily, leaving her to bounce through the foster system under a different name. Rain lashed against the window as she drifted into uneasy sleep, dreaming of recognition in her father's eyes. Morning came with pale sunlight breaking through clouds. Lily washed her clothes in the motel sink and hung them to dry over the shower rod. She counted her money again, just enough for a simple black shirt from a nearby thrift store. The rest would have to go toward another night at the motel. She couldn't risk sleeping on the streets after the gala, not when everything might change. As afternoon approached, Lily stood before the cracked mirror in the motel bathroom. The face that stared back had her mother's high cheekbones and her father's serious eyes. She'd cut her dark hair short months ago, easier to maintain on the streets, but it had grown out enough to frame her face softly, with clean clothes, and her hair neatly combed. She looked almost like the daughter Robert Bennett had lost, not the homeless girl who sold flowers on street corners. "Today," she whispered to her reflection, tucking her father's wallet and the old photograph into her pocket. "Today everything changes." The grand ballroom of the Seattle Convention Center had been transformed into a glittering wonderland of crystal chandeliers and ice blue lighting for Meridian Technologies' annual charity gala. Lily stood in the staff preparation room, adjusting the black button-up shirt she'd purchased that morning. Around her, professional servers dressed in identical attire received their assignments from a harried event coordinator. "You new girl?" the coordinator called, pointing at Lily. "You'll be on the West Bar. Just hand out champagne, don't try to mix anything." She thrust a silver tray into Lily's hands before moving on to the next person. Lily's fingers tightened around the tray. The weight of Robert Bennett's wallet seemed to burn in her pocket. She had planned to approach him directly, to find a quiet moment to return it, and finally reveal herself. But now, seeing the scale of the event, hundreds of Seattle's wealthiest and most powerful citizens mingling under the watchful eyes of security, her confidence wavered. "First time?" asked a young man beside her, adjusting his bow tie. "I'm Miguel. Did 3 of these tech galas last month. Rich people love to celebrate themselves while pretending to care about charity." He grinned. "Just smile, keep the drinks flowing, and you'll be fine." Lily attempted a smile. "Thanks. I'm Lily." "Good luck, Lily. Don't spill anything on anyone." "Important." With a wink, Miguel disappeared into the growing crowd of guests. Taking a deep breath, Lily followed the other servers into the main ballroom. The space buzzed with conversation and soft orchestral music. She positioned herself at the West Bar as instructed, filled her tray with champagne flutes, and began circulating among guests. Her eyes constantly scanned the room for Robert. According to the event program she'd glimpsed, he was scheduled to give the keynote address at 8:30 p.m. That gave her approximately 90 minutes to find him beforehand. "Champagne, please," requested a woman in a shimmering blue gown. As Lily handed her a glass, the woman tilted her head. "Do I know you from somewhere?" Lily's stomach tightened. "I don't think so, ma'am." "You look so familiar." The woman's perfectly manicured finger tapped against her glass thoughtfully. "I have one of those faces," Lily replied, the same response she'd given Claire yesterday. Before the woman could inquire further, Lily slipped away into the crowd, heart hammering. This had been a mistake. Too many people, too many eyes. What if someone recognized her resemblance to Robert? Or worse, what if they connected her to the homeless flower seller outside Meridian Technologies? She considered leaving, abandoning her plan entirely, when a hush fell over the room. Robert Bennett had arrived. He stood at the entrance, tall and commanding in a tailored tuxedo. Silver threaded through his dark hair at the temples, and fine lines had formed around his eyes, but he was unmistakably the father from her childhood memories. Beside him stood Claire, the executive assistant who had offered Lily this job, whispering something in his ear. A small group of executives clustered around him, hanging on his every word. Lily froze, her tray of champagne forgotten in her hands. 15 years of separation collapsed in an instant. She was 8 years old again, watching her father leave for work, promising to return for her ballet recital that evening. Her promise broken by screeching tires and shattering glass. Miss, are you all right?" Lily blinked, realizing a guest was addressing her. She had been standing motionless, staring at Robert. "I'm sorry," she murmured, offering the tray. She needed to compose herself. There would be time later to approach him, when the crowd thinned. For the next hour, Lily circulated through the gala, always keeping Robert in her peripheral vision. He moved from group to group, shaking hands and engaging in conversation, the perfect picture of a successful CEO. But she noticed something else, a sadness that seemed to settle in his eyes when he thought no one was watching. a heaviness to his shoulders when he stood alone. At 8 o'clock, Claire announced that dinner would be served shortly, directing guests to find their assigned tables. In the momentary confusion, Lily saw her opportunity. Robert had stepped away from the crowd, checking his phone in a quiet corner near the emergency exit. Now or never. Lily set down her tray and approached him, her heart thundering so loudly she was certain he must hear it. When she was just a few feet away, he looked up. "Excuse me, Mr. Bennett." Her voice came out steadier than she expected. His expression was polite but distracted. "Yes? I believe you dropped this yesterday." She held out his wallet, her fingers trembling slightly. "Outside your office building?" Robert's eyebrows rose in surprise. He patted his jacket pocket, apparently just realizing the wallet was missing. "I hadn't even noticed," he admitted, accepting it. "Thank you, Miss Lily," she said, the name catching in her throat. "My name is Lily." Something flickered across his face, a momentary confusion, quickly replaced by gratitude. "Well, thank you, Lily. That's very honest of you." He opened the wallet, checked its contents. "Everything's here. I'd like to offer you a reward." She shook her head. "That's not necessary." Robert studied her for a moment longer. "Have we met before? You seem familiar." The question she'd been both dreading and hoping for. Lily's carefully rehearsed speech evaporated. Instead, she reached into her pocket and withdrew the faded photograph, her father holding her as a child. 15 years ago, she said quietly, holding it out to him. Before the accident, Robert took the photograph, confusion evident in his expression. He glanced between the image and Lily's face, uncomprehending at first. Then, slowly, recognition dawned in his eyes. Recognition followed by disbelief, then a staggering hope. "It's not possible," he whispered. "They told me you died with your mother." "Aunt Rebecca identified the bodies," Lily explained, her voice breaking. "She lied. She wanted control of my trust fund. By the time I was old enough to understand what had happened, to try to find you, you had moved away, changed your name from Robert Benfield to Bennett. Started over." Robert's face had drained of color. He reached out a trembling hand toward her face, but stopped short of touching her, as if afraid she might disappear. "My Lily had a small birthmark, just below her right ear." Wordlessly, Lily turned her head, brushing aside her hair to reveal the crescent-shaped mark she'd carried. "Since birth." "Oh my God," Robert whispered. The wallet and photograph slipped from his fingers, falling soundlessly to the carpet. His knees buckled and he reached blindly for the wall to steady himself. "Dad," Lily said, the word unfamiliar on her tongue. "After so many years, I've been trying to find the courage to approach you for months. I've been selling flowers outside your building, watching you come and go, wondering if you'd recognize me." Robert's legs gave out completely. He slid down the wall to the floor, his eyes never leaving her face. Tears streamed unchecked down his cheeks. "My little girl," he whispered. "They showed me a body. I buried you. I mourned you for 15 years. Lily knelt beside him, her own tears falling freely now. "I know. I'm so sorry." Around them, the gala continued, guests oblivious to the reunion happening in the quiet corner. But Claire had noticed. She approached cautiously, concern evident in her expression. "Robert, is everything all right? Should I call security?" Robert looked up at his assistant, his face transformed by emotion. "Claire," he said, his voice raw, "this is Lily, my daughter." Claire's eyes widened as she looked between them, finally, understanding why Lily had seemed so familiar. "Your daughter? But you said, I thought she died in the accident with Sandra." Robert struggled to his feet, never taking his eyes off Lily, as if afraid she might vanish. "There's been a terrible mistake. A lie." His expression hardened momentarily. "Rebecca will answer for this." Claire, ever efficient even in shock, glanced around at the crowded ballroom. "You need privacy. Use the executive suite upstairs. I'll handle things here. Make your apologies." Robert nodded gratefully. To Lily, he extended his hand, a tentative bridge across 15 years of separation. "Will you come with me, please? There's so much I need to know." Lily placed her hand in his, the first contact between father and daughter. Since she was 8 years old, his fingers closed around hers, warm and solid and real. "I've been alone for so long," she said softly. "Never again," Robert promised, his voice breaking. "Never again." As Claire led them toward a private elevator, away from curious eyes, Lily felt the weight of 15 years of loneliness begin to lift. She had prepared herself for disbelief, for rejection, even for anger, but not for this, the pure, uncomplicated joy in her father's tear-filled eyes, the look of a man who had been given back something he had thought lost forever. Tomorrow there would be questions, legal battles, the unraveling of Rebecca's deception. But tonight, in a quiet room above the glittering gala, a father and daughter would begin the long process of finding each other again. The executive suite atop the convention center offered a panoramic view of Seattle's skyline. The Space Needle, illuminated against the night sky. Neither Lily nor Robert noticed the view. They sat across from each other in plush chairs, separated by a coffee table that seemed both too wide and too narrow for the weight of 15 years. "You have your mother's smile," Robert said, his voice still unsteady. "I see her in you so clearly now." Lily's fingers twisted in her lap. The black shirt she'd bought for serving at the gala suddenly felt inadequate, a reminder of the vast difference between their worlds. "I remember her singing to me at night, French lullabies. She insisted you be bilingual," Robert said, a pained smile crossing his face. "Said it would open doors for you." She was right. It helped me in the foster system. I was the kid who could help others with French homework. Lily paused, seeing her father flinch at the mention of foster care. "I'm sorry. This must be overwhelming." Robert leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Tell me everything, please. Where you've been, what happened after I thought I lost you." Lily took a deep breath and began the story she'd rehearsed countless times but never thought she'd actually tell. The accident that had killed her mother instantly. How she'd been thrown clear of the car but suffered head trauma. The hospital, where she'd awakened days later, confused and unable to remember her last name. They found Mom's ID, but mine was missing. I was just Lily to them. When Aunt Rebecca came, she told them I was her niece, Emily Sanders. She said she was my only living relative. "Rebecca," Robert whispered, his face hardening. "My wife's sister. She always resented our success, but to do this," his hands clenched into fists. "She took me to Chicago," Lily continued, "enrolled me in school as Emily, told everyone my parents had died. I didn't remember enough to contradict her. The doctors said the memories might come back in time." "And they did?" Lily nodded. "Slowly. Little things at first. By the time I was 12, I remembered enough to know she was lying. That my real name was Lily Bennett, not Emily Sanders, that I had a father who was still alive." "Why didn't you tell someone? The authorities?" "I tried," Lily said, the old frustration creeping into her voice. "I told a teacher. Rebecca convinced them I was making up stories to cope with trauma. She had legal guardianship papers. When I kept insisting, she put me in therapy. The therapist diagnosed me with a dissociative disorder, said I was creating a fantasy life to escape grief." Robert closed his eyes, pain etched in every line of his face. "All these years, what happened to Rebecca? How did you get away?" "She spent most of the trust fund money within a few years. When I was 16, she remarried and moved to Europe with her new husband. Left me in foster care rather than take me along." Lily's voice was matter-of-fact, but her fingers had curled tightly around the armrests. By then, I'd stopped trying to convince people who I really was. I focused on surviving, finishing high school. And after that, I aged out of the system at 18, worked whatever jobs I could find, all the while I was searching for you. She managed a small smile. The internet made it easier. I found articles about Meridian Technologies, about its reclusive CEO who had rebuilt his life after losing his family. There were photos of you at business events. I knew it was you, even with the name change. Bennett was my middle name, Robert explained. After the accident, I couldn't bear to hear Benfield anymore. Too many memories. I thought a fresh start would help. It took me almost 5 years to save enough money to come to Seattle. I arrived 3 months ago with nothing but a backpack and the address of your company. Robert's expression crumpled. 3 months? You've been outside my building for 3 months, selling flowers in the rain, while I've been 50 feet away in a heated office. I wasn't ready, Lily admitted. I was afraid you wouldn't believe me. Or worse, that you would, but you'd moved on, built a new life, maybe a new family. There's been no one since your mother, Robert said quietly. I threw myself into the company. It was the only way I knew to keep breathing after losing you both. A knock at the door interrupted them. Claire entered with a tray of coffee and sandwiches, her efficient manner softened by the emotion in her eyes. I thought you might need something, she said, setting down the tray. I've handled the situation downstairs. Told everyone you were called away on an urgent family matter. Robert smiled gratefully. Thank you, Claire. When she had gone, Robert poured coffee for them both. Lily accepted the cup, noticing how her hands trembled slightly. How strange to be sitting here in a luxury suite, being served coffee by the father she'd thought lost to her forever, when just last night she'd been counting coins for a motel room. Where have you been staying? Robert asked, as if reading her thoughts. Lily hesitated. Different places, recently the Emerald Motel on Aurora. Robert's expression told her he knew exactly what kind of establishment the Emerald was, a last resort shelter for those on the margins of society. And before that, shelters sometimes, parks in summer. She shrugged, attempting nonchalance. I manage. No more, Robert said firmly. You're coming home with me tonight, to where you belong. Home. The word hung in the air between them, weighted with promise and uncertainty. Lily sipped her coffee, using the moment to gather her thoughts. It won't be simple, she said finally. Legally, I'm still Emily Sanders. I have ID, a social security number, all under that name. Proving I'm Lily Bennett will be complicated. I have resources, Robert said. Lawyers, investigators, we'll get DNA tests. There must be medical records from the hospital after the accident. We'll find a way. His voice softened. If you want that. Of course I want that, Lily whispered. It's all I've wanted since I remembered who I really was. Robert set down his coffee cup and moved to sit beside her. Tentatively, he reached for her hand. May I? Lily nodded, fighting back tears as his warm fingers closed around hers. 15 years ago, I buried an empty coffin, he said. I've lived with the guilt every day, wondering if I could have saved you and your mother if I'd been in the car instead of at work, if I'd cancelled that meeting and attended your ballet recital as promised. It wasn't your fault, Lily said fiercely. The other driver ran the red light. Nothing would have changed if you'd been there, except maybe I would have lost both parents instead of one. Robert's composure finally broke. Tears streamed down his face as he pulled Lily into an embrace. She stiffened momentarily. Physical affection had been rare in her life, before melting into her father's arms, inhaling the faint scent of his cologne. It triggered another memory, sitting on his lap in his home office while he worked, the same scent surrounding her as she colored in her books. "I missed so much," Robert said brokenly against her hair. "Your childhood, watching you grow up, all those years we can never get back." "But we have now," Lily reminded him, her own tears soaking into his expensive suit jacket. "We have tomorrow, and all the days after that." When they finally pulled apart, Robert kept one hand on her shoulder, as if afraid she might disappear if he let go completely. "There's something I need to show you," he said. "At home. Our home. Will you come with me tonight?" Lily hesitated only briefly before nodding. "I need to get my things from the motel first. Of course, we'll go now if you're ready. Claire can handle the rest of the gala." As they rode the elevator down to the parking garage, Lily felt a strange mixture of elation and trepidation. In a matter of hours, her entire reality had shifted. The father she'd spent years searching for was standing beside her, but they were still strangers in many ways, separated by years of different lives. Robert's car was a sleek black Tesla, a stark contrast to the buses and borrowed rides that had defined Lily's existence. As they pulled away from the convention center, the reality of her situation struck her anew. Yesterday, she had been selling wilted flowers on a street corner. Tonight, she was riding in a luxury car with the CEO of Meridian Technologies, her father heading to collect her meager possessions from a rundown motel before going to his home in one of Seattle's wealthiest neighborhoods. It was the beginning of a new chapter, but the story was far from simple. There would be legal battles ahead, painful confrontations with the past, and the complex process of rebuilding a relationship shattered by 15 years of separation. But as Seattle's lights blurred past the car windows, Lily felt something she hadn't experienced in years: hope, unfolding like a flower after a long winter. The Emerald Motel stood in stark contrast to the glittering downtown they had left behind. A single-story building with peeling paint and a flickering neon sign missing the letter E. Robert's Tesla looked alien in the cracked parking lot, drawing curious glances from a man smoking outside his room. "It's just for tonight," Lily said quietly, embarrassed by the setting. "Room 14. Robert nodded, his expression carefully neutral as he followed her to the door. Inside, the small room contained little evidence of Lily's presence: a worn backpack, a few items of clothing neatly folded on the bed, and a plastic bag containing toiletries from a dollar store. "This won't take long," she said, quickly gathering her belongings. From under the mattress, she retrieved a plastic folder containing her identification documents and the few mementos she'd managed to keep through years of transience. The photograph she'd shown Robert, her mother's tarnished locket, and the small music box. Robert's eyes fixed on the music box. "You still have it," he whispered, reaching for it with reverent fingers. "I gave this to you for your 8th birthday just weeks before." "It plays for Elise," Lily said. "I've kept it wound and working all these years. It was the only proof I had that my memories were real." Robert opened the lid, and the delicate melody filled the shabby motel room. For a moment, they both stood silent, transported back 15 years to a sunny morning in their old home. Birthday candles and presents, a family whole and unbroken. Robert closed the lid gently. "We should go," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Unless there's anything else you need?" Lily glanced around the room one last time, then shouldered her backpack. "Nothing here matters anymore." The drive to Magnolia was quiet, both of them processing the evening's revelations. Seattle's skyline gleamed across the water as they crossed the bridge, the familiar made strange by their new circumstances. When they turned into a tree-lined street of elegant homes, Lily's stomach tightened with anxiety. Robert's house was not the ostentatious mansion she had imagined, but a modern craftsman with warm lighting visible through large windows. As the garage door opened automatically, Lily glimpsed a home that was beautiful, but not showy, the residence of a man with wealth but private tastes. "It's just me here," Robert said as he led her inside. "I have a housekeeper who comes 3 times a week, but no live-in staff." The interior was a study in understated luxury. Hardwood floors, custom cabinetry, and art that suggested careful curation rather than decorator-chosen pieces. Despite its beauty, the house had an undeniable emptiness to it, the feeling of a space that had never quite become a home. "Are you hungry?" Robert asked, setting down her backpack in the entryway. "I can make something simple, or we could order in." Lily shook her head. "Just tired, I think. It's been a lot." Robert nodded in understanding. "Let me show you to a room. Tomorrow we can talk more, make plans." He led her upstairs to a guest bedroom with a view of the garden. The space was beautifully appointed with a queen bed, reading nook, and attached bathroom. Lily had to suppress a gasp. After months of shelters and cheap motels, it seemed impossibly luxurious. "The bathroom should have everything you need," Robert said, "but if there's anything else, my room is at the end of the hall." "Thank you," Lily said, suddenly shy in the face of his generosity, "for believing me, for bringing me here." Robert paused at the door, his expression conflicted. "I should have recognized you immediately. A father should know his own daughter." 15 years is a long time," Lily said gently. "And you thought I was dead. You weren't looking for me in the face of a homeless flower seller." He nodded, not entirely convinced. "Get some rest. We'll figure everything out tomorrow." After he left, Lily explored the room in wonderment, running her fingers over the soft bedding, testing the plush carpet with her toes. The bathroom contained high-end toiletries and fluffy towels. She showered for a long time, washing away the gala, the motel, the months of struggle, before slipping into a borrowed t-shirt from the dresser. Despite her exhaustion, sleep eluded her. The bed was too soft, the silence too complete after months of thin motel walls and street noise. Around midnight, she gave up and padded downstairs, drawn by a light in what appeared to be a home office. Robert sat at his desk, surrounded by old photo albums and papers. He looked up when she appeared in the doorway. "I couldn't sleep either," he admitted. "I've been looking at these." He gestured to the photo albums. "Pictures of you and your mother, of our life before." Lily approached hesitantly. "May I see?" He motioned to a chair beside him, and she sat, leaning over to examine a photo of herself at about 6 years old, beaming in a ballet costume. "My first recital," she said, the memory suddenly vivid. "You brought me roses afterward. You remember that?" Some things stayed clear, even when I couldn't recall my last name or where we lived. She turned the page to a family vacation photo. The 3 of them on a beach. Her mother beautiful in a sundress, her father laughing as he held Lily on his shoulders. "Was this Hawaii?" "Maui," Robert confirmed. "You were fascinated by the sea turtles, insisted on wearing your swimsuit to dinner every night." They continued through the albums, reconstructing their shared past. With each memory recovered, the years of separation seemed to recede slightly, a bridge forming across the chasm of lost time. "I have something else to show you," Robert said eventually, rising from his chair. "I wasn't sure if I should wait, but perhaps you should see it now." He led her down a hallway to a closed door. Taking a deep breath, he pushed it open and flipped on the light. Lily's breath caught in her throat. It was a bedroom, her bedroom, preserved exactly as she had left it at 8 years old. Ballet posters on the walls, stuffed animals arranged. On a twin bed with a purple comforter, books neatly lined on shelves. "You kept it," she whispered, stepping inside. "All this time." "I couldn't bear to change it," Robert said, remaining in the doorway. "The therapist said it wasn't healthy, that I needed to move on, but I couldn't let you go." His voice broke slightly. "Every year on your birthday I would come in here and imagine what you might be like at 9, at 12, at 16. Lily, moved slowly around the room, touching items from her childhood. A snow globe from their trip to New York, a jewelry box where she had kept seashells and pretty rocks, the stuffed rabbit she had slept with every night. "His name was Hoppy," she said, picking up the well-loved rabbit. "Mum sewed his ear back on after I caught it in the car door." "Yes," Robert said, a look of wonder crossing his face. "You remember him." "I've missed him," Lily admitted, hugging the rabbit to her chest. The simple act unlocked something. Tears began to flow freely, years of loneliness and loss pouring out as she clutched the toy from her childhood. Robert crossed the room and wrapped his arms around her, his own tears falling into her hair. Together they grieved, for Sandra, forever lost to them both, for the years stolen from their relationship, for the childhood Lily should have had, for the father Robert hadn't been allowed to be. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I should have found you. I should have known you were alive." "It wasn't your fault," Lily insisted through her tears. "Rebecca fooled everyone. She had a body identified as mine. What were you supposed to think?" They sank onto the edge of the twin bed, surrounded by the artifacts of a life interrupted. For several minutes they sat in silence, the weight of their grief gradually giving way to the tentative hope of reunion. "You could stay in here tonight," Robert suggested, "if you wanted to, or if it's too much, the guest room is fine." Lily looked around at the bedroom that had belonged to a different version of herself. A child who had never experienced foster care or homelessness, who had never sold flowers on street corners or slept in park pavilions during summer heat. "Waves, I think," she said carefully, "that tomorrow we could start moving some of these things to the guest room. Mix the past with the present." She smiled slightly. "Except for Hoppy. He comes with me tonight." Robert nodded, understanding what she was trying to say. She couldn't simply step back into the life that had been stolen from her. Too much had happened. She had become someone different. But neither did she want to abandon the connection to her childhood, to the family she had lost and found again. "One day at a time," he agreed. "We'll figure it out together." Morning light filtered through unfamiliar curtains as Lily woke, momentarily disoriented by the plush comfort surrounding her. The events of the previous night rushed back. The gala, the revelation, coming home with her father. Home. The concept. Still felt foreign, a word that belonged to other people. She showered and dressed in her cleanest clothes, jeans with a worn spot at the knee and a faded blue sweater, before venturing downstairs. The aroma of coffee and something baking guided her to the kitchen, where she found Robert at the stove, attempting to flip a pancake. "I'm a bit out of practice," he admitted, noticing her in the doorway. "I don't cook often, but I remembered you used to love Saturday morning pancakes." "Still do," Lily said, moved by the gesture. She approached the counter. "Need help?" Together they finished preparing breakfast, establishing a tentative rhythm. The domesticity of the scene struck Lily as both strange and familiar, like muscle, memory from a time before everything shattered. Over coffee and slightly misshapen pancakes, Robert outlined his plan for the day. "I've called my attorney, James Whitford. He's the best in Seattle, handled my business affairs for years and helped me through after the accident. He'll be here at 11, Lily nodded, trying to mask her apprehension. "What exactly do we tell him?" "The truth. All of it." Robert's eyes hardened. "Rebecca committed fraud, identity theft, and child abduction. She needs to face consequences. She's in Europe somewhere. France, last I heard." "We'll find her," Robert assured her. "But first, we need to legally establish who you are. Reclaim your identity." After breakfast, Robert gave Lily a proper tour of the house, the garden with its Japanese maples, the small home gym, the library filled with books on technology and business. In his home office, he unlocked a fireproof safe and removed a folder of documents. "Your birth certificate," he said, laying it carefully on the desk. "Your social security card, school records from before the accident. I kept everything." Lily examined the birth certificate with wonder. Lily Sandra Bennett, born April 17, 2001, at Northwest Hospital in Seattle. Parents, Robert James Bennett and Sandra Marie Laurent Bennett, a document connecting her to her true self, declaring her existence official and undeniable. What about... She hesitated. "Mom's things." Robert's expression softened. "I kept those, too. Her jewelry, her books, photographs. They're yours now, whenever you're ready to see them." The doorbell interrupted them at precisely 11 o'clock. James Whitford was a distinguished man in his 60s, with silver hair and penetrating blue eyes that took in Lily with professional assessment. If he was surprised by Robert's revelation, he masked it well. "This is quite a situation," he said after Robert explained everything. "Legally complex, but not insurmountable." They moved to the living room, where James spread documents across the coffee table. "First priority is establishing identity. We'll need DNA testing to prove parentage. That's straightforward. Medical records from the accident should still exist, though they'll list you as an unidentified minor initially." "And Emily Sanders?" Lily asked. "That identity has followed me for 15 years. Tax records, employment history, everything is under that name." "We'll need to merge the identities," James explained. "Prove that Emily Sanders is actually Lily Bennett, victim of identity fraud. Once established, we can correct all official records." The conversation shifted to Rebecca and potential criminal charges. "Statute of limitations complicates things," James admitted. "But fraud, identity theft, misappropriation of trust funds, these are serious charges. If she's in France, we'll need to involve international authorities." "Whatever it takes," Robert said firmly. "Cost is no object." Lily listened as the two men discussed legal strategies, feeling simultaneously grateful and overwhelmed. Her life as Emily Sanders, a life of struggle and survival, was being dissected like a case study. Yet the prospect of reclaiming her true identity filled her with a profound sense of rightness. After James departed with a promise to begin proceedings immediately, Robert turned to Lily. "That was a lot to process. How are you feeling?" "Like I'm in someone else's life," she admitted. "Yesterday I was selling flowers on a street corner. Today I'm sitting in a mansion discussing international legal proceedings." Robert's expression clouded. "I've been thinking about something all morning. Why didn't you approach me sooner? You said you've been outside my building for 3 months, Lily sighed, gathering her thoughts. "At first, I was just trying to gather courage. Then, I started watching you. The way you walked into that building. Every morning, so purposeful and contained. You've built this whole life. The company, your reputation. I didn't know if there was room in it for a daughter who suddenly reappears after 15 years, especially one who..." She gestured at her worn clothes, "who comes with complications." "You thought I wouldn't want you," Robert said, realization dawning in his eyes, "because of your circumstances. Can you blame me? Look at all this." She waved at their surroundings. "I've been homeless, Robert. I've eaten from dumpsters when things got really bad. I dropped out of community college because I couldn't afford textbooks. The last job I held for more than a month was at a gas station, and I lost that when they found out I was sleeping in my car behind the building." Robert flinched at each revelation, but didn't look away. "None of that matters. You're my daughter. Nothing could make me not want you in my life." "Easy to say now," Lily replied, "but what happens when your board of directors finds out their CEO's daughter was a homeless woman? When it makes the news? When people start questioning whether..." "I'm just after your money?" "Let them talk," Robert said with sudden fierceness. "I lost you once. I won't lose you again because of what anyone thinks. Not my board, not the press, not anyone. His conviction silenced her doubts momentarily. Outside, rain began to fall, pattering against the windows in a familiar Seattle rhythm. Are you hungry? Robert asked, changing the subject. We could go out for lunch or order in if you're not ready for that. The simple question, so normal, so parental, brought an unexpected lump to Lily's throat. When was the last time someone had asked about her hunger without it being a matter of desperate necessity? Out, she decided. I've spent enough. Time hiding. As they prepared to leave, Robert hesitated by the door. I have meetings scheduled all next week that I should cancel. The company can run without me for a while. Don't, Lily said quickly. I don't want to disrupt your life completely. Besides, I need time to adjust too. We don't have to cram 15 years into a few days. Robert nodded reluctantly. At least let me take you shopping after lunch. You need clothes, toiletries, whatever else you might want. Lily wanted to refuse, pride and long-established independence warring with practical need, but the genuine desire to help in his eyes swayed her. Nothing extravagant, she compromised, just basics. As they drove to a waterfront restaurant, Lily watched Seattle pass by through rain-streaked windows. The city looked different today, not a place of struggle and survival, but a landscape of possibility. She still felt caught between worlds, between identities. Emily Sanders, the survivor, Lily Bennett, the found daughter. Somehow, she would need to reconcile these selves into a person who could navigate this new reality without losing herself in the process. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So, if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. The waterfront restaurant occupied a renovated pier with glass walls showcasing Elliott Bay's choppy waters. Lily felt conspicuous in her worn clothes amid the well-dressed lunch crowd, but the hostess merely smiled as she led them to a corner table with a stunning view of the Sound. I should have suggested somewhere more casual, Robert said, noticing her discomfort. No, this is fine. Lily straightened her shoulders. I can't hide forever. Their waiter approached. A young man with a carefully groomed beard who did a double take when he recognized Robert. Mr. Bennett, welcome back. It's been a while. Thank you, Michael. How's the culinary program going? Graduating in May, sir. Thanks for asking. He turned to Lily with professional courtesy. Can I start you with something to drink? After they ordered, Robert explained, Michael's brother works in our IT department. The family had a tough time after their father died. The company's scholarship fund helped with his education. You have a scholarship fund? Lily asked, surprised. Among other initiatives. It started small, just after... He paused. After the accident. It felt important to create something positive from the loss. His eyes met hers. The foundation is called New Beginnings. I'd like you to see it sometime. Their conversation flowed more easily over lunch, focusing on safer topics, the cities, changes over 15 years, Robert's company and its evolution from startup to industry leader, Lily's favorite books and films. They carefully navigated around the painful gaps in their shared history, building small bridges of connection instead. As they finished dessert, Robert's phone buzzed with a text. He frowned at the screen. James has expedited the DNA test. A technician can meet us at the house this afternoon. He glanced up. Is that too soon? Lily shook her head. Might as well start the process. Shopping afterward proved less uncomfortable than Lily had anticipated. Robert respected her preference for simple, practical clothing, though she could see him restraining himself from suggesting more expensive options. She selected a modest wardrobe, enough to get through a couple of weeks without doing laundry, plus a few toiletries and necessities. Is that really all? Robert asked as they prepared to check out. You haven't chosen a single thing that isn't strictly functional. Lily hesitated, then pointed to a soft cashmere sweater in deep blue. That one is beautiful, but it's not practical. Robert added it to their purchases without comment, a small victory in his quiet campaign to provide for his daughter. When they returned home, the DNA technician was waiting, a professional woman who efficiently collected cheek swabs and explained. The accelerated timeline. We should have results within 48 hours. Mr. Whitford has marked this case as high priority. After she left, an awkward silence descended. The practical tasks of the day had provided structure, but now, alone in the house, the enormity of their situation resurged. Would you like to see it? Robert asked suddenly. New beginnings. The foundation office isn't far. Lily welcomed the suggestion, eager to learn more about the life her father had built during their separation. The foundation occupied a renovated warehouse in the Sodo district, its interior transformed into a modern space with warm lighting and collaborative areas. A receptionist greeted Robert with obvious surprise at his weekend appearance. Just showing Lily around, he explained without elaborating on her identity. Is Diane in? Diane Porter, the foundation's director, emerged from an office, a formidable woman in her 50s with cropped silver hair and intelligent eyes. She assessed Lily with undisguised curiosity. This is a surprise, Robert. You rarely bring visitors. Her gaze shifted between them, noting the resemblance that Lily now realized must be apparent to observant eyes. Diane, this is Lily, Robert said simply. My daughter. To her credit, Diane's composure never wavered, despite the impossibility of the statement. Everyone knew Robert Bennett's daughter had died 15 years ago. I see, she said, offering her hand to Lily. This must be quite a story. One we're still figuring out, Robert replied. I wanted Lily to see what we've built here. Diane led them through the foundation's facilities, education centers where at-risk youth received tutoring, meeting rooms for support groups, administrative offices where scholarships and grants were processed. The walls displayed photographs of recipients, students graduating, small business owners outside their shops, families in front of new homes. We focus on second chances, Diane explained. People who need just one opportunity to change their trajectory. Education assistance, business microloans, housing support for families transitioning from homelessness. Lily stopped before a photo of a young woman in a chef's uniform, proudly standing in a professional kitchen. This could have been me, she said quietly, if I'd found something like this after aging out of foster care. It's not too late, Diane said. The foundation also supports adult education, career training. Diane, Robert interrupted gently, Lily isn't a potential client, but she might, if she's interested, have ideas for how we could better serve people in similar situations to what she's experienced. Understanding dawned in Diane's eyes. Of course, we're always looking for input from those with lived experience. As they continued the tour, Lily's mind raced with possibilities. All those years struggling alone, never knowing that her father had created an organization dedicated to helping people exactly like her. The irony wasn't lost on her. In Diane's office afterward, the director finally asked the question hanging in the air. How is this possible, Robert? Everyone knows about the accident. Robert explained the bare facts, while Lily watched Diane's expression shift from skepticism to shock to outrage. I have no words, Diane said when he finished. The legal ramifications alone. We're handling those, Robert assured her, but there will be publicity eventually. I wanted you prepared. I understand. Diane turned to Lily. Whatever you need, this foundation exists because of you, because of what Robert thought he'd lost. It seems fitting that you should have a voice in its future. The statement hung in the air, a generous invitation, but also a reminder of the public role that awaited Lily as Robert Bennett's daughter, a role she wasn't sure she was ready for. On the drive home, Robert seemed energized by the visit, outlining possibilities for Lily's involvement if she were interested. Your perspective would be invaluable. Only if you want, of course. No pressure. Lily stared out at the rain-slicked streets, overwhelmed by the day's revelations. "I need time," she said finally. "Everything's happening so fast. Yesterday I was nobody. Today I'm touring a foundation that exists because of me, talking about DNA, tests and legal proceedings against my aunt." Robert's enthusiasm dimmed. "I'm pushing too hard. I'm sorry." "It's not that." Lily struggled to articulate the conflict within her. "For 15 years I've been surviving on my own, making my own decisions, fighting my own battles. And now, suddenly there's all this," she gestured vaguely. "Support, resources, options. It's disorienting." "You're afraid of losing your independence," Robert realized, "of becoming someone you don't recognize." "Yes," Lily admitted, relieved he understood. "I don't know how to be Lily Bennett, daughter of a tech CEO. I only know how to be Emily Sanders, who sleeps with a knife under her pillow at the Emerald Motel and counts pennies for dinner." They drove in silence for several blocks, rain drumming. On the car roof, finally Robert spoke. "When your mother died, when I thought I'd lost you both, I didn't know how to exist in that new reality. Everything that had defined me was gone. I had to build a new self, piece by piece." He glanced at her. "You don't have to become someone else, Lily. Just an expanded version of who you already are, with more options." It was the right thing to say, acknowledging her fears without dismissing them, offering perspective without pressure. Lily felt some of the tension ease from her shoulders. "One day at a time," she said, repeating their agreement from the night before. Robert nodded, a small smile touching his lips. "One day at a time." As they pulled into the driveway, Lily's phone chimed with a notification, an old flip phone that Robert had noticed but tactfully hadn't suggested replacing. She checked the screen and felt a jolt of recognition. "It's Frank," she said. "The security guard from your building. He's texting to check if I'm okay since I wasn't at my usual spot today." The simple message, "Missing our flower girl, everything all right?" was a pointed reminder of the life she'd been living just 24 hours earlier and the people who had shown her kindness within it. "You should tell him," Robert suggested. "Whatever you're comfortable sharing." Lily composed a brief response, her fingers hesitating over the keys. How did one summarize such a transformation in a text message? Finally, she settled on, "I'm okay, better than okay, found my father. It's a long story, we'll tell you soon." 3 days passed in a surreal haze of adjustment and legal proceedings. The DNA results arrived with clinical certainty, a 99.999998% probability that Robert Bennett was Lily's biological father. James Whitford immediately filed paperwork to begin the process of legally restoring her identity, while a private investigator tracked Rebecca's movements in Europe. Lily established a tentative routine in Robert's home, carefully navigating the strange new reality of having a parent after 15 years of self-reliance. They shared breakfast each morning before Robert left for work, awkwardly negotiating the balance between his desire to provide everything and her need for independence. On Wednesday afternoon, Lily stood at the kitchen island unpacking groceries. She'd insisted on buying herself, a small assertion of autonomy that Robert had respected, if reluctantly. Her phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Is this Emily Sanders?" a woman's voice asked when Lily answered. "Yes," Lily replied automatically, the name still her legal identity despite recent revelations. "This is Marjorie Klein from the Seattle Tribune. We're working on a story about your relationship with Robert Bennett. Would you care to comment on reports that you're claiming to be his deceased daughter?" Lily's hand froze midway to shelving. "A can of soup. How did you get this number? We have our sources. Is it true that DNA tests have confirmed your identity? How long have you been deceiving Mr. Bennett about your existence?" The accusation jolted Lily from her shock. "I haven't deceived anyone. Please don't call this number again." She ended the call, hands trembling. Within minutes, Robert called. "Are you all right? The Tribune just contacted our PR department." "They called me too," Lily said. "How did they find out so quickly?" "James thinks someone at the testing lab leaked it. I'm coming home. Don't answer any calls from numbers you don't recognize." By the time Robert arrived, 3 more publications had called. Lily sat at the kitchen table, staring at her silent phone as if it might explode. "It's happening already," she said when Robert entered. "The scrutiny, the questions, they're making it sound like I orchestrated some elaborate con." Robert's jaw tightened. "We knew this would happen eventually. I just hoped we'd have more time before facing the public aspect." He sat across from her. "We have options. We can issue a statement, hold a press conference, or maintain complete privacy until the legal process concludes." "What would you normally do in a PR situation?" "Control the narrative," Robert said without hesitation. "Provide enough information to satisfy curiosity without revealing everything. But this isn't a business crisis. It's our lives." Lily considered this, weighing her lifelong instinct for privacy against the reality of her new situation. "If we say nothing, they'll make up their own story. I don't want to be portrayed as some schemer who appeared from nowhere to claim an inheritance." "You could never be portrayed that way," Robert insisted. "You haven't seen how the world treats homeless people," Lily replied. "How quickly assumptions are made." That evening, they crafted a brief statement with James and Meridian's PR director, acknowledging Lily's identity, confirming that DNA testing supported her claim, and requesting privacy during their reunion. It didn't mention Rebecca or the details of the deception, focusing instead on the joy of their reconnection. "This buys us some time," James explained, "but prepare yourselves. This story has everything the media loves: wealth, deception, a long-lost child. It won't go away quietly." After the professionals left, Robert and Lily sat in the living room, the weight of public exposure settling between them. "I'm sorry," Robert said finally. "Your life was private before. Now, because of who I am, that privacy is gone." "It's not your fault," Lily said. "I knew who you were when I decided to find you. Still, there are things we should discuss, practical matters." Robert shifted uncomfortably. "Financial arrangements, for one." Lily tensed. "I didn't come looking for you because of money." "I know that," he assured her, "but you're my daughter, my only child and heir. There are trusts that should have been yours all along, accounts set up before the accident, and we'll need to address Rebecca's theft of your original trust fund." The mention of money brought Lily's insecurities rushing back. Yesterday, she'd hesitated to buy a $4 coffee. Today, they were discussing trust funds and inheritances. "I don't need access to anything right now," she said carefully. "I'm still figuring out who I am in all this." Robert nodded, respecting her. "Boundaries. Whenever you're ready, but know that it's there, not charity, just what was always meant to be yours." Later that night, unable to sleep, Lily wandered downstairs to find Robert in his office again, working despite the late hour. "Do you ever rest?" she asked from the doorway. He looked up, rubbing his eyes. "Work has been my companion for a long time. Hard habit to break." Lily entered and perched on the edge of a chair. "Can I ask you something about Mom?" Robert set aside his laptop. "Anything. Was she happy? Before the accident, I mean. With your life together?" The question seemed to catch Robert off guard. "Yes," he said after a thoughtful pause. "We had our struggles like any couple, but we were happy. She was proud of what we were building. The company was just taking off then, but she always made sure we remembered what mattered most." He smiled faintly. "You. Family. She's the one who insisted we have dinner together every night, no matter how busy things got." "I remember that," Lily said, "and her rule about no phones at the table." She'd be amazed by how everyone lives with phones in their hands now. Robert's expression grew wistful. She would have been so proud of you, Lily, for surviving, for never giving up. Even though I was selling flowers on street corners, especially because of that, your mother valued resilience above all else. He hesitated, then added, "There's something of hers I've been wanting to give you. I was waiting for the right moment." From his desk drawer, he removed a small velvet box and handed it to Lily. Inside nestled a delicate gold necklace with a pendant, a small bird with wings outstretched. "Her freedom bird," Lily whispered, memories flooding back. She wore this all the time. It was her most treasured possession, Robert confirmed, a gift from her grandmother. The day of the accident, she'd left it on the bedside table. She never wore it when driving because she worried the clasp might break. After everything, I kept it in my dresser for years. It felt wrong to lock it away in a safe. Lily lifted the necklace, watching the pendant catch the light. "In my last foster home, I tried to draw this from memory. I couldn't get it quite right. It's yours now," Robert said, "as it should have been all along." Lily fastened it around her neck, the familiar weight of the pendant settling against her collarbone. It was strange how something so small could feel so significant, a physical connection to the mother she'd lost, to the life that had been stolen from her. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Outside, the wind had picked up, sending rain pattering against the windows. Inside, father and daughter sat in comfortable silence, the space between them gradually filling with shared memories and cautious hope for the future. 1 week after Lily's identity became public, the media frenzy showed no signs of abating. Their carefully worded statement had only fueled curiosity, with reporters camping outside Meridian Technologies and Robert's home, hoping for a glimpse of the long-lost daughter. Headlines ranged from sympathetic, "Tech CEO's miracle, daughter returns from the dead," to skeptical, "The Bennett heiress, heartwarming reunion, or elaborate scheme." Lily stood at the living room window, watching a photographer with a telephoto lens adjusting his position across the street. "This is getting ridiculous," she muttered. "Don't they have anything better to cover?" Robert looked up from his laptop where he'd been reviewing legal documents. "Unfortunately, no. But they'll lose interest eventually when something more scandalous comes along." The doorbell rang, triggering their newly established protocol. Robert checked the security camera on his phone before relaxing. "It's Frank." Lily brightened. She had called the security guard from Meridian the day after the news broke, explaining her situation in halting sentences. Frank had listened without interruption, then simply said, "I always knew there was something special about you, flower girl." Robert opened the door to the stocky, grey-haired man who had shown Lily kindness during her month selling flowers. Frank entered, removing his rain-speckled jacket and handing Robert a paper bag. "The pastrami sandwiches you asked for," he said. "Had to dodge 3 reporters on the way in. Told them I was delivering groceries." "Thank you for coming," Lily said, genuinely pleased to see a familiar face from her old life. They ate lunch in the kitchen, Frank filling the potentially awkward silences with stories about the characters who frequented the area around Meridian. His matter-of-fact attitude toward Lily's transformation was refreshing. He treated her exactly as he had when she was selling flowers, without the careful consideration Robert's friends had shown at a small dinner party 2 nights before. "Your corner's not the same without you," Frank said, finishing his sandwich. "Though I gotta say, you look better with regular meals and a roof over your head." "I miss it sometimes," Lily admitted. "The simplicity of it. Selling flowers, watching, and people being invisible," Frank snorted. "You were never invisible, kid. Not to those of us paying attention." After lunch, he pulled a small potted plant from his bag, a miniature rose bush with delicate yellow blooms. "Figured you might miss having flowers around," he said gruffly. This one won't die on you, like those sad daisies you used to sell." The thoughtful gesture brought unexpected tears to Lily's eyes. "Thank you, Frank." After he left, Robert watched. Lily carefully placed the plant on the kitchen windowsill. "He's a good man," he observed. "I never knew his name before today, despite seeing him every day for years." "That's how it works," Lily said. "People like me become invisible to people like you. No offense." "None taken. It's a fair observation." Robert hesitated. "Speaking of observations, James called this morning. The investigator located Rebecca in Nice. She's living under a married name, Rebecca Levine." Lily's hands stilled on the plant. "Have they contacted her?" "Not yet. James wants to build the strongest possible case before proceeding, but it's only a matter of time before the press finds her too." The thought of confronting Rebecca, the aunt who had stolen her identity and abandoned her to foster care, sent a chill through Lily. "What do you think she'll say when she's caught? How could anyone justify what she did?" "I don't know," Robert admitted. "I've been asking myself the same question. Rebecca was always envious of Sandra, of our life together, our success. But to take it out on a child, her own niece," he shook his head. "There's no justification possible." Later that afternoon, while Robert took a conference call, Lily retreated to her room and opened her laptop. A new purchase she'd finally allowed Robert to make after her flip phone began receiving dozens of messages from unknown numbers. She navigated to a secure email account she'd created years ago under the name Emily Sanders. The inbox contained what she expected: messages from reporters offering payment for exclusive interviews, supposed friends of Rebecca claiming to have information, and a few kind notes from people who remembered her from various shelters and temporary jobs over the years. One email caught her attention, from a Hannah Reeves, with the subject line, "I was there that day." Lily clicked it, opened cautiously. "Emily, or Lily, as I now understand is your real name, you don't know me, but I was a nurse at Harborview Medical Center when you were brought in after the accident that killed your mother. I remember you clearly, an 8-year-old girl with a head injury, no identification except for your first name, which you managed to tell us before slipping unconscious again. I was on duty when your aunt arrived, claiming to be your only living relative. Something about her never sat right with me, but I had no grounds to question her documentation. I've carried that discomfort for 15 years. When I saw the news story about you and Robert Bennett, everything finally made sense. If you or your father need a witness to what happened in those first critical days after the accident, I would be willing to speak with your attorneys, Hannah Reeves, RN." Lily stared at the screen, a missing piece of her history suddenly materializing. A witness to the beginning of Rebecca's deception. Someone who had been there, who had seen her in those confused, traumatic days after losing her mother. She forwarded the email to Robert and James, adding only, "This could help." The rest of the day passed in a blur of legal calls and preparations. James was cautiously optimistic about Hannah's offer, arranging to meet with her the following day to assess her credibility and potential value as a witness. That evening, Lily and Robert sat on the back deck despite the chilly air, seeking refuge from the watchful lenses at the front of the house. The rose plant from Frank sat between them on the table, its yellow blooms bright against the gathering dusk. "I've been thinking," Lily said, breaking a comfortable silence, "about what happens after all this legal stuff is settled, about what I want to do." Robert turned to her, giving her his full attention. "And?" "I want to go back to school, finish my degree." She traced the rim of her coffee mug. "Maybe study social work or psychology, something that would help kids in the system." "I think that's perfect," Robert said, his pride evident. "The foundation could even create a scholarship program specifically For former foster youth, Lily smiled at his enthusiasm, always the CEO looking to expand operations. Force of habit, he admitted, but only if it's something you'd want to be involved with. The easy way he included her in future plans, the natural assumption that she would remain part of his life, warmed something in Lily that had been cold for too long. The path ahead was still uncertain. Legal battles, public scrutiny, the emotional reckoning with 15 lost years. But for the first time, she wasn't facing it alone. One step at a time, she reminded him, reaching for his hand across the table. But yes, I think I'd like that. 2 months after Lily's reappearance in Robert's life, spring had fully arrived in Seattle. Cherry blossoms dusted the city in pale pink, and the persistent rain gave way to occasional sunshine. The media circus had gradually dispersed as predicted, though the story still resurfaced whenever a new development occurred in their legal proceedings. Lily stood in the kitchen of what she now comfortably called home, preparing coffee while reviewing notes for her first college class, an introduction to psychology at Seattle Central College. After lengthy discussions with Robert, she had decided to start with one course, testing her readiness for academic life before committing to a full schedule. "Big day," Robert observed, entering the kitchen in his standard work attire. "Nervous?" "A little," Lily admitted. "It's been a while since I sat in a classroom." "You'll be brilliant." He accepted the coffee she offered. "I was thinking, would you like me to drive you first day and all?" Lily smiled at the suggestion, recognizing the protective instinct behind it. "Thanks, but I need to do this myself." "The bus will be fine." She patted the sleek messenger bag he'd given her as a back-to-school gift. "Besides, I'm not sure either of us is ready for the father-daughter drop-off scene." They had developed an easy rapport over the weeks, finding a balance that honored both Robert's desire to parent and Lily's need for independence. Their shared dry humor had emerged as common ground, a bridge across the years of separation. As they finished breakfast, Lily's phone chimed with a calendar reminder. "Hannah's testifying today." Robert nodded, his expression turning serious. "James thinks her testimony will be crucial. A medical professional who witnessed Rebecca's initial deception, it establishes the pattern from day one." The legal case against Rebecca Levine, formerly Bennett, had gained momentum. After being located in France, she had initially denied all allegations, claiming a misunderstanding. But faced with mounting evidence, Hannah's testimony, financial records showing the systematic draining of Lily's trust fund, documentation of her sudden departure from the US after Lily began asking questions about her identity, Rebecca had changed tactics, seeking a plea arrangement. "Do you think she'll actually face consequences?" Lily asked, voicing a doubt that had plagued her for weeks. "People like her usually find ways to escape justice." "Not this time," Robert said with quiet determination. "James has built an airtight case, and international pressure is mounting. What she did violates laws in both countries." Lily nodded, though uncertainty lingered. Throughout her life, authority figures had consistently failed her. Social workers who didn't listen, foster parents who saw her as a paycheck, police officers who viewed her with suspicion when she tried to explain her true identity. The idea that the system might finally work in her favor seemed almost too much to hope for. "Either way," she said, gathering her belongings, "I'm not letting it define my future anymore." Robert smiled at her resilience. "That's my girl." A phrase, casual as it was, warmed Lily in unexpected ways. My girl, a simple acknowledgement of belonging, of connection. "I should go," she said, checking the time. "Don't want to be late on my first day." At the door, Robert surprised her with a quick hug. "Call me after class. I want to hear everything." "Even the boring parts, especially those." The bus ride to campus gave Lily time to reflect on the whirlwind of the past months. The legal restoration of her identity was nearly complete. Driver's license, social security card, passport, all now bearing the name Lily Bennett. The psychological adjustment was proving more complex. Some mornings she still woke disoriented, momentarily forgetting the dramatic turn her life had taken. Seattle Central's campus bustled with students rushing to morning classes. Lily blended in easily, no longer the homeless flower seller, but not quite a typical student either. At 23, she was older than many freshmen, with life experiences that set her apart in ways invisible to casual observers. The psychology classroom was half full when she arrived. She chose a seat near the back, arranging her notebook and pen with careful precision. The professor, a woman in her 40s with bright silver jewelry and a welcoming smile, began by having students introduce themselves briefly. When Lily's turn came, she hesitated only momentarily. "I'm Lily Bennett," she said, the name still new on her tongue in public settings. "I'm interested in studying how trauma affects identity formation." She didn't elaborate on why this particular subject fascinated her. The class proved more engaging than she had anticipated. The professor's discussion of fundamental psychological concepts frequently referenced real-world applications, particularly in therapeutic settings. Lily took detailed notes, already connecting theoretical frameworks to her own experiences. Afterward, she lingered on campus, exploring the library and student center before finding a quiet bench overlooking a small garden. She called Robert, as promised, describing the class with an enthusiasm that surprised her. "It sounds perfect for you," he said warmly. "Oh, and James called while you were in class. Hannah's testimony went exceptionally well. Rebecca's attorney has requested another meeting to discuss plea options." "Good," Lily said, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Justice mattered, but no legal outcome could restore what had been taken from her. "Let me know what happens." That evening, they celebrated her successful first day with takeout from her favorite Thai restaurant. Over green curry and pad Thai, Robert hesitantly broached a subject they had been circling for weeks. "The foundation board meets next Thursday," he said. "They've expressed interest in having you attend, if you're comfortable with it." Lily twirled, noodles around her fork, considering. She had visited New Beginnings several times since their initial tour, even volunteering occasionally with their youth tutoring program. The idea of a more formal role both appealed to and intimidated her. What exactly would they expect from me? "Nothing specific at this stage," Robert assured her. "Just your perspective. Eventually, if you're interested, there could be a place for you on the board itself. But that's entirely your decision, no pressure." Lily appreciated his careful phrasing, the constant balance he maintained between offering opportunities and respecting her autonomy. "I'll come to the meeting," she decided. "But let's see how it goes before discussing anything more permanent." Robert nodded, visibly pleased. "Diane will be thrilled. She's been singing your praises since you helped redesign the intake forms for the housing program." The minor project had been Lily's suggestion, simplifying the bureaucratic paperwork that often deterred homeless individuals from seeking assistance. Drawing on her own experiences navigating social services, she had created a more accessible process that preserved dignity while gathering necessary information. As they cleared the table together, Lily realized how completely her daily reality had transformed. From selling wilted flowers in the rain to attending college and redesigning forms for her father's foundation, the trajectory seemed impossible. Yet here she was, living it. "What are you thinking about?" Robert asked, noticing her contemplative expression. "Just life. How unpredictable it is." She rinsed a plate, choosing her next words carefully. "Even with everything Rebecca did, all the years we lost, somehow we still found our way back to each other." Robert's eyes shone with emotion. "Against impossible odds." "Maybe not so impossible," Lily said softly. Maybe somehow we were always meant to find each other again. 1 year later, Seattle's skyline glowed golden in the late afternoon sun as Lily stood on the podium at the New Beginnings Foundation's annual gala. The ballroom of the same convention center where she had first revealed herself to Robert now held a different significance, no longer a place of revelation and shock, but of purpose and celebration. "When I was 16, she began, her voice steady despite the hundreds of attentive faces before her, "I spent 3 nights sleeping in a park because the shelter was full and my foster placement had fallen through. On the 4th night, a woman found me huddled on a bench. Instead of calling the police, she took me to a local organization that helped homeless youth. That single act of compassion changed my trajectory. The audience, Seattle's philanthropic elite mixed with foundation. Clients and community partners listened intently. Among them sat Robert in the front row, his expression a blend of pride and lingering amazement, as if he still couldn't quite believe the journey that had brought them here. "The Second Chance initiative we're launching tonight will create emergency intervention teams specifically for youth aging out of foster care," Lily continued. "Because sometimes all it takes is one person, one opportunity to prevent a life of chronic homelessness." The initiative had been Lily's conception from start to finish, her first major project since joining the Foundation's board 6 months earlier. Robert had provided guidance when asked, but had deliberately stepped back, allowing her vision to take center stage. After her speech, as attendees mingled during the reception, Lily found herself approached by a young woman barely out of her teens, wearing a borrowed dress and an expression of nervous determination. "Ms. Bennett, I'm Zoe. I just wanted to say I'm in the Foundation's housing program. Hearing your story, knowing you understand what it's really like out there." She hesitated. "It matters that someone like you is in a position to actually change things." Before Lily could respond, Zoe was called away by her case manager, but the brief exchange lingered. "Someone like you." The phrase captured the unique perspective Lily brought to the Foundation's work, the lived experience that informed every program she helped develop. Later, as the event wound down, she found herself standing with Robert near the same spot where, a year earlier, he had collapsed upon recognizing his long-lost daughter. The memory felt simultaneously recent and distant, part of a different lifetime. "Your mother would have been so proud of you tonight," Robert said, his voice soft with emotion. "Not just because of the initiative, but because of who you've become." Despite everything that happened, Lily touched the small bird pendant at her throat, her mother's necklace, now a constant companion. "I've been thinking about her today, wondering what she would think of all this." "She'd think her daughter is extraordinary," Robert said simply. The legal proceedings against Rebecca had concluded 3 months earlier. After extensive negotiation, she had pleaded guilty to reduced charges in exchange for full restitution of the misappropriated trust fund and a suspended sentence with strict probation terms. The outcome had left Lily with mixed emotions. Relief that the legal battle was over, satisfaction in the financial restitution, but a lingering sense that true justice remained elusive. Rebecca would never fully understand the damage she had caused, the years she had stolen. Yet standing in the aftermath of the gala, surrounded by tangible evidence of positive change, Lily found that Rebecca occupied less space in her thoughts than ever before. The past would always be part of her story, but it no longer defined her future. "Ready to go home?" Robert asked as the last guest departed. Home. The word had taken on new depth over the past year. They still lived in the Magnolia House, though Lily had gradually transformed the guest room into a space truly her own, blending elements of her childhood bedroom with her current tastes. She had also recently begun looking at apartments near campus, a step toward independence that Robert supported, even as they both acknowledged the bittersweet nature of the eventual separation. "Actually," Lily said, "there's somewhere I'd like to go first, if you don't mind." 20 minutes later, they stood at the corner of Pike and Madison, where Lily had once sold flowers outside Meridian Technologies. The spot looked different now. A new bench had been installed, and the streetscape had been updated with planters filled with seasonal blooms. "It's strange," Lily said, looking up at the building where her father had worked while she stood in the rain, gathering courage to approach him. "I stood here for months, watching you come and go, never knowing how one conversation would change. Everything." Robert surveyed the corner with new eyes. "I must have walked past you dozens of times without really seeing you." "We weren't ready yet," Lily said. "I needed to find my courage. You needed to be open to a miracle." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city move around them. Business people heading home, tourists consulting maps, a street musician setting up nearby. All the ordinary moments that comprised life, the backdrop against which their extraordinary reunion had unfolded. "Come on," Lily said finally, slipping her arm through her father's. "Let's go home." As they walked to the car, Lily glanced back once at the corner where her old life had ended and her new one begun. Not with grand gestures or dramatic revelations, but with a simple act of courage, a young woman holding out a wallet to a stranger who turned out to be the father she had lost 15 years before. The corner would always be there, a landmark in her personal geography. But her path now led elsewhere, toward education, purpose, and the family she had found again against impossible odds. 5 years later, Lily stood behind the podium at Seattle University's graduation ceremony, the crimson doctoral hood newly draped across her shoulders. The audience before her represented a cross-section of the city, academics in formal regalia, families clutching bouquets and balloons, community members who had supported the university's innovative programs. My research into trauma-informed approaches for youth transitioning from foster care began with a simple question. She addressed the gathering. What happens when systems designed to protect children ultimately fail them? And more importantly, how can we create interventions that actually work? In the front row, Robert watched with undisguised emotion, his silver hair now fully white, but his posture still commanding. Beside him sat Frank, retired from his security position, but still a regular presence in their lives, and Claire, who had become a trusted friend and ally over the years. The resilience I've witnessed in the young people who participated in this study defies simple explanation, Lily continued. They've encountered barriers most of us can't imagine, yet they persist, they dream, they rebuild. Our responsibility isn't to rescue them, but to create spaces where their inherent strength can flourish. Her dissertation had combined rigorous academic research with programs implemented through the New Beginnings Foundation, creating a model being adopted by organizations across the country. The dual roles, scholar and foundation director, complemented each other, theory informing practice and real-world experience grounding her academic work. After the ceremony, amidst hugs and photographs, Lily found a quiet moment with Robert. Near the campus rose garden. "Dr. Bennett," he said, his voice thick with pride. "Has a nice ring to it," Lily smiled, adjusting the unfamiliar weight of the doctoral hood. "Still feels surreal. There were days in the shelter system when I couldn't imagine finishing high school, let alone this. Your mother would have insisted on framing the diploma in solid gold," Robert said, his ability to invoke Sandra's memory now bringing comfort, rather than pain. "The foundation office wall will do just fine," Lily replied. "Speaking of which, how are the preparations for the Chicago expansion?" "On schedule for the fall launch." Robert's expression turned reflective. "I never imagined when I started New Beginnings that it would grow into what it's become. That was all you." The foundation had indeed transformed under their shared leadership. What began as a local Seattle initiative now operated programs in 3 cities, with Chicago set to become the 4th. Lily's Second Chance initiative had become the organization's signature program, with documented success in preventing homelessness among former foster youth. Later that evening, they hosted a small celebration at Lily's apartment, a bright space overlooking Green Lake that she had purchased the previous year. Her first real home of her own, though she still spent regular time at Robert's house. As friends and colleagues mingled, Lily excused herself briefly and stepped onto the balcony. The spring evening was unusually clear, stars visible despite the city lights. She touched the gold bird pendant at her throat, her mother's necklace, still her most treasured possession. The journey from homeless flower seller to Dr. Lily Bennett had been neither straight nor simple. There had been setbacks along the way, moments of doubt, occasional nightmares about her years in the system, the complicated grief of mourning a mother long gone while building a relationship with the father she had found again. Rebecca remained a peripheral figure, having completed her probation and returned to France. She had made one attempt to contact Lily 3 years earlier, a letter expressing what seemed like genuine remorse, but Lily had decided against responding. Some bridges, once burned, could not be rebuilt, though she had found a measure of peace in letting go of active resentment. The sliding door opened behind her, and Robert joined her on the balcony, offering a glass of champagne. "Penny for your thoughts, Dr. Bennett." "Just reflecting," Lily said, accepting the glass. "On unlikely journeys." Robert nodded in understanding. "I was thinking earlier about that corner outside Meridian. How many times I must have walked past you without seeing you, all the coincidences that finally brought us together." "I don't think it was coincidence," Lily said quietly. "I think somehow, despite everything, we were meant to find each other again." They stood in comfortable silence, the bond between them no longer fragile or uncertain, but strong and enduring. Father and daughter, separated by deception and reunited by chance, now partners in healing and hope, not just for themselves, but for others who had experienced similar fractures in their lives. "To unlikely journeys," Robert said, raising his glass. Lily smiled, touching her glass to his. "And to finding our way home." 10 years to the day after Lily had returned to Robert's life, they stood together at the grand opening of the Lily Bennett Center for Youth Resilience. The gleaming new building in downtown Seattle represented the culmination of their shared vision, a comprehensive support hub for young people transitioning from foster care, offering housing, education, mental health services, and employment. Assistance under one roof. "This isn't just a building," Lily addressed the crowd gathered for the ribbon-cutting ceremony. "It's a promise to young people who have been told repeatedly that they don't matter. Here, they will find not just services, but a community that believes in their potential." At 43, Lily carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had transformed her deepest wounds into sources of strength. Her work had earned national recognition, including a prestigious fellowship and consulting roles with government agencies developing foster care reform initiatives. But this center, funded through a combination of foundation resources, private donations, and public partnerships, represented her most ambitious project yet. Robert, now in his 70s, but still sharp and engaged, watched from the sidelines with unmistakable pride. Though he had stepped back from daily operations at both Meridian Technologies and the Foundation, he remained actively involved in strategic decisions, his business acumen complementing Lily's first-hand understanding of the systems they sought to change. After the formal ceremony, as guests toured the facility, Robert found Lily in the center's rooftop garden, a peaceful space designed by former foster youth participating in the Foundation's horticultural therapy program. "Sandra would be absolutely bursting with pride today," he said, joining her by a planter filled with native wildflowers. "As am I." Lily smiled, the lines around her eyes crinkling slightly, evidence of a life that now held far more joy than sorrow. I've been thinking about her all day, and about who I was when we found each other again, selling those sad little flowers, afraid to approach you. You've come a long way from that corner, Robert acknowledged. We both have. The decade since their reunion had reshaped them both. Robert had gradually allowed himself to step back from the relentless work schedule that had defined his years of grief, finding joy in simpler pleasures, travel, photography, mentoring young entrepreneurs, and most importantly, building the relationship with his daughter that had been stolen from them. Lily had blossomed professionally while also developing deep personal connections that had once seemed impossible. Her circle now included close friends, colleagues, and the many young people whose lives she had touched through the Foundation's work. Though she had never married, she lived a rich and fulfilling life, her childhood wounds healed, though not forgotten. "You know what I realized recently?" Lily said, gazing out at the Seattle skyline. "For years after we reunited, I kept waiting for it all to disappear, for something to go wrong, for you to somehow vanish again. It took me so long to truly believe this was permanent." Robert nodded in understanding. "The mind protects itself from hoping too much when you've experienced that kind of loss. But somewhere along the way, that fear just faded." She turned to him, her expression serene. "I stopped bracing for the next abandonment and started building something lasting instead." Below them, the center buzzed with activity. Staff preparing for the first residents who would arrive the following week, media capturing the innovative design elements, community partners discussing future collaborations. The building represented not just physical safety for vulnerable youth, but a philosophy that Lily had developed through her own journey, that healing happens in community, that purpose grows from pain, that broken beginnings don't determine final outcomes. As the afternoon light bathed the rooftop garden in golden hues, father and daughter stood together. Two people who had lost and found each other against impossible odds, who had transformed their own reconnection into a mission that would ripple outward through countless other lives touched by similar fractures. "Full circle," Robert said softly, placing his hand over Lily's on the garden railing. "Not a circle," Lily corrected gently. "A spiral. We keep moving forward, but with everything we've learned along the way." The sun dipped below Seattle's skyline. As the celebration at the Lily Bennett Center wound down, guests departed with commemorative flowers, vibrant, healthy blooms, unlike the wilted daisies Lily once sold on street corners. As twilight settled over the city, Lily and Robert lingered in the center's lobby, where a simple plaque had been installed near the entrance. "In honor of second chances and unexpected miracles," Lily read aloud, her fingers tracing the engraved words. "For every child who needs to find their way home." Robert placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Your mother would say it's perfect." "It is," Lily agreed, looking around at the building that would shelter so many young people like her former self. "Though I've been thinking lately that perhaps we should add something." "What's that?" Lily smiled. "A flower shop, right in the lobby, staffed by the residents." Robert's eyes crinkled with understanding. "From selling flowers for survival to selling them for healing. I love it." As they walked out together into the evening, the city lights reflected in puddles from an earlier rain shower. The corner where Lily had once stood with her cardboard sign was visible in the distance, now transformed with a memorial bench and planter bearing a small bronze plaque, "Where lost souls find each other." Life rarely gives us the stories we expect. Sometimes it takes our carefully written plans and tears them to pieces, leaving us to gather the fragments and create something entirely new. But occasionally, in the most unexpected places, a chance encounter, a returned wallet, a moment of courage, we discover that what was broken can be mended, what was lost can be found. Every reunion is a miracle. Every second chance is a gift, and every ending is just another beginning in disguise. If you believe in the power of unlikely connections and the possibility of healing even the deepest wounds, join our Journey Stories family. Subscribe now to witness more tales of extraordinary reunions, unexpected second chances, and the miracles that happen when we refuse to give up hope. Because the most beautiful stories are often the ones we never saw coming.